The Premier League is one of the most watched football leagues in the world. Every match day, millions of fans across the world tune in to watch their favourite teams fight it out in one of the most competitive leagues in world football. But depending on where you are, watching Premier League games can actually be pretty stressful. And guess what? Much of that stress is caused by the TV companies who buy the rights to these games and then broadcast them to viewers in different locations. Those TV companies are who we refer to as the middlemen. But it seems like the Premier League is looking for ways to cut off the middlemen and serve the viewers directly through a new streaming service. Basically, the Premier League is becoming Netflix. Since the league was founded in 1992, the way broadcasting has always worked is by selling rights to these middlemen who then go on to broadcast the games to viewers in their location. So these viewers usually pay for a subscription package to these TV companies, which will give them access to the games. But for some years now, the Premier League has been flirting with creating a streaming service of their own, which will enable them to cater directly to the consumer and completely cut off the middlemen. How will this work? Basically, like Netflix, the idea is to make the platform function like your average streaming service. So you'll pay a subscription fee directly to the Premier League, which will grant you access to football games and other Premier League shows like exclusive interviews, talk shows, tactical analysis, pre-game and post-match conferences, build-ups, and even the FPL shows. For this to actually work and win the consumers over, the subscription fee will have to be less than what consumers around the world currently pay the middlemen. It will also have to be super easy for the layman to access. Then and only then would it feel like an upgrade on what is already common. This whole idea has actually been in the pipeline for more than 4 years now, so it's hard to tell when or if it will actually be launched. According to the Premier League CEO, Richard Masters, a lot of time and resources have been invested into trying to build enough capacity to tend directly to the consumer. Apparently, they came to a point where they felt it was time to start to test a few markets, but they later decided not to. But he gave assurances that his team will definitely be ready when the next opportunity arises. So watch out for that breaking news anytime soon. Now I know some of you might be asking, what's in it for the Premier League? Surely they're not doing this just because they really care about the fans. Well, you're very right. The Premier League might actually have the interests of the fans at heart with this initiative, but the truth is that it's actually going to make them a truckload of money if they can properly pull it off. According to reports, media rights revenue for the 2022 to 2025 sales cycle should be raking in more than £10 billion for the Premier League. That is a little over £3 billion a year. That's a mouth-watering amount, right? But guess what? If the league begins to cater directly to consumers, that number will significantly increase. And that is also good news for your favourite teams in the league, because the more money the league makes from broadcasting football games, the more they're able to share among the teams. For example, in the 2022-23 season, every team in the Premier League earned an equal share of £31.2 million each from the broadcast deals in the UK, and £48 million each from international agreements. They also got £9.4 million from commercial payments, which meant that every single Premier League team was guaranteed to earn £88.6 million, regardless of where they finished on the table. Crazy, right? But if the Premier League can successfully pull off this new broadcasting format, that amount will see a significant increase. So best believe all your favourite clubs and players will be championing this new format. And in that case, it feels like a win-win for everyone involved. Well, except the TV companies. But for the Premier League, the clubs, the players and the consumers, it's nothing but good news. The Premier League earns more money and is able to pay the football clubs more as well. And when the football clubs earn more, they're also able to pay their players more. And like I said earlier, for this to even work in the first place, the subscription fees will have to be lower than what consumers currently pay to watch the games under the current arrangement. So for you, the fan, it's good news as well. But then for the consumers, especially those outside of the UK, there will be one big issue that may cause some reluctance to switch to this new Premier League format. If the Premier League decides to make this switch, it will take care of Premier League games, of course. But what happens to the other football games? FA Cup, Champions League, La Liga, World Cup, Euros, Serie A games? What happens to them? How do you watch those? Well, that would take you back to the TV companies, wouldn't it? Many TV companies, especially outside the UK, offer their consumers packages that allow them to watch games from different leagues and different competitions all in the same place and for a reasonable fee. It would be really difficult to get consumers like this to abandon those TV companies that give them so many different matches and go for a Premier League subscription service which offers them just Premier League games. And let's even say that the other leagues decide to follow the Premier League's route and also offer streaming services for their games. The average consumer will still prefer to have a one-stop shop for all the games instead of having to subscribe separately to each of these different leagues' streaming platforms. So honestly, it's still pretty difficult to see how this will work, especially outside of the UK. But to be fair, Masters mentioned that the intention is to not completely phase out the TV companies. He particularly mentioned the intention to create a two-tiered system, which will allow fans in certain locations to continue watching games via TV broadcasters, while fans in some other locations will stream directly from the Premier League. So we'll actually just have to wait and see how this will all work out. As for when this all will happen, who knows? Masters himself said that it's impossible to know when this new streaming format will be introduced, but he's pretty confident it will happen eventually. So guys, it looks like this is the future. But what do you guys think about this though? If the Premier League actually began to stream games directly to consumers like Netflix, would you subscribe or would you just continue watching games the way you currently do? Talk to me in the comments. While you do that, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.